Okay, morning everybody. Hi, Carole. It's Richard Hatter here calling you from the UK. Thanks a lot for agreeing to join. So, for the benefit of all the viewers, this is Carole Gemayel. She's basically the head of sustainability for the whole of the Rotana group based in Abu Dhabi. And we've been trying to set this up for a couple of months now, and we're really happy to have her on board to talk about sustainability with the Rotana group. So,
Hi,
welcome.
Richard, and
Great,
thank you for having me.
great. So, I think, I've quite a lot of the different podcasters that we've been talking to have various different kind of backgrounds and different genders and from many different countries and different brands. So it'll be very interesting to learn a little bit about how you got into this whole area of sustainability and in a very senior corporate director position. So could you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, well, my background is honestly, it's a diploma and in engineering and food science.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
So I started my career in Abu Dhabi in 2011. Okay, the position at that time it was mainly its food safety position, food hygiene position. Then the regulation started that you know what we as a country we want to start to work on health and safety, environment. So the position moved to EHS, environmental health and safety. And I was so lucky that at that time, Rotana decided to start their journey when it comes to sustainability. So we were mainly in charge of implementing all the sustainability initiatives of Rotana on property level. So we
I
started to
see.
attend training and all of this. And then I moved from being on property level to cluster to area manager. And then during COVID, I had the chance to do a lot of consultancy on everything on sustainability, health and safety, and food safety, till I got the opportunity to come back to Rotana as the in charge of sustainability and EHS.
I see. Okay. So at that time when they decided to kind of kick off
Yeah.
this whole thing, was that under a different CEO? It wasn't under Mr. Barnes, right? It was
Yeah,
somebody else.
it was under someone else. Yeah, it was
And
under
then how
Mr.
many properties did they have at that time when they decided to embark on this?
I would say maybe around 40, 50,
Okay. And now how many do you have?
around 80.
Okay, so double.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it must be quite a challenging process to try and kind of keep tabs on everything. Do you have, I know that for sometimes we try to meet and you attending a lot of meetings and
Yeah.
conferences and things like that. So could you tell us a little bit about how you kind of keep track of everybody and what all the other hotels are doing and who do you communicate at property level? I mean, if Rotana is going to roll out a new policy, for instance, or a
Yeah.
new direction, how do you communicate that across all these different 80 hotels?
So in every hotel, we have a dedicated personnel. Okay, so I have a team, one person or two in each hotel where I communicate to them and then they make sure it's implemented. As well, in at the corporate, I'm yes alone, but we have a committee that enrolls our CVP of engineering, of IT, of F&B, of purchasing, of materials. So we have a committee that we share ideas, projects that we are working on. We do the same in front of the ops meeting where we have the area VPs on board, and this is how mainly we communicate whatever we are working on, get their feedback, and then enroll it across.
I see. Okay, that's interesting. So, uh, in terms of the kind of geographical logistics of where all your hotels are, mainly in the UAE, correct? And
Yes, mainly
yes,
UAE and Saudi Arabia. We have
and
as well
Saudi
quite
Arabia.
a number of hotels in Saudi Arabia.
Okay. And so, have you seen any sort of new initiatives, or what's the UAE's approach to hotel sustainability in general? Like, how has it evolved over this time, would you
Uh,
say?
Look, it's very interesting how they evolved, by the way. So, as I said, it started in 2011, where in Abu Dhabi, particularly, they imposed that every hotel will have a dedicated EHS. Okay,
Yeah.
depending on how big is the hotel, you can have one, two manager, officer. So it depends on the hotel itself. And then, so we had to, every hotel had to report on their performance, especially when it comes to sustainability, EHS. In Dubai, it started in 2015, where the government started to initiate, where they set 19 guidelines related to sustainability, where the hotels, they have to comply with.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Right.
And then they created both Emirates. They created a platform where the hotels can really show their energy consumption. It's like they report data to the government. Where do we stand from all the initiatives and targets? And then recently, since COP, the government in all Emirates, they started to do audits on their behalf to check if the hotels that are complying with the
Mhm.
sustainability criteria.
Okay. So presumably there's got to be some kind of a KPI sustainability goal for each hotel in order to, for you in the head office to kind of keep tabs on what they're doing and achieve those standards. Is that right?
Yes.
How do you roll that out? I mean, I know that um, big corporations like yours have sort of strategic meetings every year and roll out their sort of vision for the to 2025 or 2026 or even longer term up to say 2030. Do you have any sustainability targets or goals or specific visions that Rotana has?
Yes, so mainly all our goals are part of the UN sustainability goals. Okay.
Okay.
Recently, before we used to measure our data by using like normally Excel sheet to see where do we stand from the hotels. They report on their performance, and then we, as a corporate level, we decide, okay, this is how we want to do, how it's not. But during COVID, the things started to change a bit. You know, COVID really had an impact on the performance of the hotels. Like we came back to use the plastic, the
Yeah.
chemicals that we were using, the energy, blah, blah, blah. So recently we decided as Rotana, you know what? And the main focus before was, I would say, on UAE and Saudi Arabia, because this is where we have the highest number of hotels. So we decided to change our vision and to say, you know what? No, as a Rotana, we will report as a Rotana, not anymore per specific region.
I
So we
see.
decided to enroll in all our hotels a platform. It's a software that where all our hotels, they can put their data related to sustainability and then check their performance, which will help us as well to take immediate action, you know, instead of waiting till
Okay.
the end of the year or after 6 months. These are
Right.
daily things that we can go through it and give recommendations to the hotel.
Okay. So if you were to look at those sort of data points,
Yeah.
what percentage of them would you say are related to sort of energy consumption versus other areas like food waste and that type of thing? I mean, is it very heavily leaning on consumption of energy?
Not really, because it depends honestly from one year to another. Because in many of our hotels, we already replaced to LED lights. We have the BMS system in place. We have the green building system in place. We have the IoT devices. So we already did as much as we can when it
Okay.
comes to some of the hotels. So I would say our targets, they change based on where do we stand from our like
Right,
hotels
right.
in general.
Okay. So when you're trying to sort of conserve energy and to focus on sustainability, have you had to compromise in any way with regard to the guest experience? Has have no?
No, it's honestly the opposite, because what we do in Rotana, it's always a pilot project before we do anything. So we
Okay.
try a project, we share it with the area VPs or with the GMs, then we do one pilot in one of the hotel to see really if this project is beneficial, if it will sustain, because it's easy to greenwash and to say we are doing, but after 5 years it will not work. Okay,
Can you give me an
so
example of something you've done, maybe? I mean, something that you think has, made a doesn't have to be a massive impact, but something that guests notice or that you've noticed has helped your brand image in terms of an initiative
um,
that.
So I would say mainly, for example, I will give you an example. So we work with Ecolab. This is our supplier for the chemicals within the Rotana. Okay. So we moved most of our chemicals to a more eco-friendly chemicals. Okay. So we consume less, blah, blah, blah. The most impactful one was, for example, for laundry. Okay. Where we use
Okay.
low temp. Usually for the linen, they want
Mm,
to go high temperature to kill the
yeah.
bacteria. So we worked on a system with Ecolab that it's called low temp, which with a certain type of chemical, it helped us to reduce electricity,
Okay.
water, by the way, the usage of the chemical, even the durability of the linen that we use is
Wow.
now
Yeah.
longer than before.
That's
Okay, because
great.
you're not using any more high temperature, high chemical that will really
Mm.
reduce the life cycle of the linen. So the guest can see it because even the quality of the linen that we use, the towel that we use, it's much better than
Oh,
before.
wow. Oh, that's fantastic. That's a great collaboration with with a supplier like that. That's very good. Yeah,
Yeah,
excellent.
another one, for example, I would say the amenities. So, before the hotels, we used to have the single use plastic for the shampoo. So, we put dispensers in all the hotels. This in 1 year, we reduce millions of plastic. The guests love
Mm.
the idea because you know what? Like, we were throwing it. Okay. So,
Yeah.
when we started to put in place, we have a survey that we send for the guests to collect their feedback, by the way. Okay, so we send them a survey.
Okay.
Please give us your feedback to make it better. So, for example, recently they told us, okay, the dispensers are plastic. Can you make them more sustainable? So now we're
Okay.
going to wheat containers that are made from wheat. Okay, so we're
Oh,
removing the
really?
plastic even
Wow.
completely. Yeah. So,
That's great.
so this is how we
So,
evolve usually.
so do you use the big containers, or you're still using the small ones, but
No,
they're
the big
made of
containers.
the
No,
big
no.
ones? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about like the mini bar? I mean, do you still put bottles of water in there? No.
Yeah, so we put plastic bottles in the hotels, but now as well, we recently have seven of our hotels, sorry, five, two that are on board. So I would say five of our hotels, they have
Mm.
already their own bottling room in the hotel to remove the plastic.
Okay.
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 So we create our own bottles of water and using glass bottles. But this is, for
Okay.
example, another project that we study well, and we're not imposing, by the way, on the hotels,
Yeah.
because the legal compliance in Abu Dhabi is so strict, and the quality of water is one of the things that we have to take into consideration.
Yeah.
Plus, the glass bottle sometimes is being taken by the guests. Okay, so it's like you're not recycling, someone is taking anyway the glass bottles. And
Yeah.
still, in some areas, even if you have a breakages of glass, they still go to the landfill.
I
Okay,
see. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
is no
That's true.
recycling facility. So with this project, we're going forward with it by doing each hotel separately based on the
Okay.
needs, the requirements, the feasibility, and then hopefully within the next 2 years, all our hotels will have something or a bottling room or something similar to it.
Right. When I was in Miami and in New York not long ago, I stayed at the One Hotels.
Mm,
One Hotels, they are very focused on sustainability, and what they do, they put in the room. It's kind of like a faucet, like when you go to a water faucet, in a theme park or in a gym or something. And
yeah.
then, but it was very elegantly designed, and you could either choose sparkling or still, and it was refrigerated. And there was this sort of very high density micro filtering system.
Mm,
So it was very elegantly done. And all you had to do was connect it to your water mains,
mm.
so it's actually something that I introduced into Hotel Icon when I was in Hong Kong. It was very cheap to do, and actually we had a lot of feedback from guests saying that they thought it was a great idea because you kind of completely got rid of any kind of bottles.
Well,
And it was actually in One Hotels. It was incorporated into the minibar setup.
mm.
Where you do the coffee and tea and all that. That's pretty cool. So with
Well,
your
just Richard, to mention this, this is
yeah.
what we are piloting in one of our hotels. Okay.
Right.
So it's like a dispenser, like the Nespresso machine that we are putting in the room, especially the long-term guests that we have. Okay. Where we are trying to install. And the third option that now it's everywhere in UAE, people are going through, the suppliers are providing us refillable bottle. So they will
Oh,
provide
okay.
us the quantity, they will collect the empty one, refill it, and give it back to the hotel. So this is
Right.
another third option that we are exploring as well.
Right. Another thing that I find is very wasteful are like bedroom slippers. No, people use them once and then they get thrown away. I mean, there are companies that are using different type of, like you say, bamboo or plastic
Mhm.
recycled material, sustainable to make these things. But I guess there are certain things in a guest's room that they expect to have if they're
Yes.
paying five-star prices, right? So it's the same
Look,
with
those,
airlines when you go in business class. All those. Remember, they used to give you those vanity kits with all this stuff in
yeah,
it. They've kind of got less and less, and just give people more relevant things that they really want.
I agree. Look, there are so many things that we can reduce. Like, for example, before we used to have shaving kit in every room. Now we said, you know
Yeah.
what, we'll only give it upon request, for example,
Right.
So
Right.
there are things we can do, but unfortunately, some of the things, yes, the guests will expect to have them in the room. So we'll make them in a way, in an eco-friendly way.
Yeah.
Okay. But the consumption, usually, in some cases, it's hard to control.
Yeah. How would you say Rotana is considered in terms of like ranking in terms of UAE hospitality sector? How well are you doing? Do you benchmark against other hotel groups, or do you just do your own thing, or?
Not really, but how it's done based on the audits that it's done by the government. Okay, for example,
Okay.
last year in Dubai, there was 200 hotels who applied for the Dubai Sustainability Award. Okay, only 17 were selected. Okay,
Hmm.
to get an award. So out of 17, we had five of our hotels. This
Okay.
is only in
Okay.
Dubai,
Yeah. Well,
which
that's
is
fantastic.
which is
Yeah.
good. And for example, in Abu Dhabi as well, we have something similar to such audit. All our hotels got the award. So this is how we usually benchmark. But so far, there is no really a proper tool other than the governmental.
Yeah. But do you think that it's something that you can? I'm not talking about greenwashing, but if you do, let's say you came up with a really clever initiative that nobody else has thought of or done, and that you would kind of roll that out. Do
Yeah.
you think that there could be that you think that there's a valuable marketing initiative to this? I mean, what I'm trying to get at is, when people talk about your brand and they
Mm.
say, "Oh, I'm going to select that brand because they're very focused on
Yeah.
sustainable carbon footprint goals and all that." Do you think it's something that is quite marketable in that sense if it's a very creative idea?
Yes, yes, indeed. That's
Yeah,
why even now with the for the last few months we are working again on our how we want as Rotana to share our sustainability initiatives, how we will
right.
market our initiatives. So for example, in UAE we have the Hospitality Alliance group where we have leaders from every hotel chain where we meet, we share best practices.
Okay.
And we always see that, for example, now Rotana is between the board who will be working on the guidelines on sustainability for UAE.
Mm,
So when we
mm,
see ourselves part of this group, it's mean we are doing really well. And what
yeah.
we need now to work with, so we're mainly changing our strategy when it comes to marketing for us to market more on a corporate level. Usually it's done on a
Okay.
property level, but us as a
Right.
corporate, then we can make it even better.
Yeah. So I guess the thing is, how can you, in that sense, differentiate yourself? Because ultimately, hotels are, it's a bit like the airline industry. I mean, they're basically, a plane is a plane. It's got the same, almost the same number of seats. You've got, the only thing that's different is you have a logo on the outside. They have the same crew
Yeah.
size and all that kind of thing. And I know in the Middle East, okay, hotels are different sizes and different,
Mm.
combinations of F&B and that type of thing. But to a certain extent, it's not like in this part of the world in Europe where the it's much more broad. In the UAE and Asia, big luxury hotels are somewhat similar. So how, in terms of differentiating yourself, I guess the more creative you can come up with new ideas that are marketable, and I think that's what kind of is leading me into what you were talking about earlier, when we had a little chit chat before this, was about linen and uniforms and towels and the sort of downcycling, reusability, recycling of all your linen. I mean, you think about how much linen a hotel has. I remember, after about 10 years of being at Hotel Icon, going down to the stores one, and I said to the housekeeper, let's see all your condemned linen. And there were it was a huge stockpile of stuff there. And you've got staff that come and go, all the uniforms that ended up not being reused. I mean, how do you handle all your linen waste and textiles and fabric and all that stuff?
So the first thing, we have limited stock. We always order as much as we want. We don't keep in stock. Okay.
Okay.
So whatever, it has to be on the quantity itself. Okay. This is one. Second, we try to reuse as much as possible the uniform, especially for the colleagues. Okay. If they are in good condition, usually we reuse them. Okay.
Yep.
Um, Third, we work with a lot of NGOs that they collect the discarded sheet, the uniform, and they give it to people in need. But now what we are really working on is to change it, okay? Because we want to have it more like a circular economy. So we are mainly working with a third party, with our existing supplier. So they will provide the uniform for us and all of this. They will collect them back when they are like not in good quality anymore, where they will use them to create new items for us. So many, they will recycle it into new products for
Yeah.
Rotana.
Okay.
So this is something that we are working on, because again, we don't want to work only on UAE because it's in UAE, the supplier. We don't want to create one initiative for UAE. Has to be applied as well across all Rotana. Okay,
Right. Right.
so we are working with our corporate supplier to see how we can move forward with this initiative.
Okay. Because I came across this company we used actually when I was in Hong Kong, called
Mm.
Crestwell Attire, and they actually manufacture uniforms specifically for hotels, and they use recycled materials.
Mm.
So they use plastic bottles, and because Hotel Icon that I was managing was actually owned by a university, we used it as a teaching facility and research. So in one of the outlets, we put in these recycled. It was like a coffee shop buffet concept, right? So they had these lovely aprons that looked like denim, but in fact it was made from plastic bottles, and then the pants and the shirt, everything. And I've they've now introduced an AI component so that they can actually put in the information about the brand or the concept
Mm.
or the outlet, and then it will basically create designs for that particular hotel or that particular restaurant. So the F&B director can say, okay, this is a Japanese concept, it's high end, whatever, and it will come out with different renderings. So essentially, um, you don't need a designer anymore. So if you're doing a new concept change or whatever, so the AI can design it, and then the staff can actually order the uniform directly from their website, so that they don't have to go through HR, get measured up. They can just get a link. They go there, they order it. And then when the guy leaves or anything, they can actually take the uniforms back and then
Mm.
recycle them and everything. So it's like a full
Yes.
thing. I can send you the information about it.
Yes,
It's there
please.
are there's definitely I know Shangri-La in Hong Kong is using it for housekeeping because they had like a one piece dress type of uniform for the housekeepers, and then the director of rooms wanted to split it into like a two-piece outfit, which was more comfortable for the staff. So it was all done on AI. AI came up with the kind of two-piece concept, and it actually worked out cheaper. A, because there was no design fee, but B, because it was recycled material. And I think that the actual cost of the whole outfit was less than 100 US dollars. And it was cheap. So it was cheaper than what they were currently using. It was more sustainable. And they had a really good PR story around this. So I'll send you the information about it. It's quite
Thank you.
interesting. But I think these are areas, because I think what you were saying earlier is that everybody's going for the low hanging fruit, right? Everybody's doing the same kind of thing. So if you've got a new initiative that is something really creative and it saves you money, because obviously when you go to your boss or your procurement people, they're going to say, well, why would I want to switch, right? and you can say, well, this will save us 50% or 30%, plus the fact they'll take back all our uniforms and give us cash for it. I think that's quite valuable. It's quite those are quite cool ideas.
But when we were doing the study on the new uniform concept, because we were comparing the uniform that we have to recycle, if we recycle our own uniform, and that
Okay.
the third, we as well working with a company that they provide uniform made of plastic bottles.
All
Okay,
right.
yeah,
Cool.
and honestly, but we were waiting for the summer to try their product because we need to see if the material is like it's good
Yeah.
enough for the weather here, you know.
Yeah.
So when we did the study, we found out it's more sustainable. The cost is better, which I know everyone focus on the cost as well is one
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
main impact. And the good thing, it will not go to the landfill. So,
Yeah.
which I
Exactly.
know
Yeah.
most of the uniforms, all the clothes, they are going to the landfill. So, we're
Yeah.
working on this project, but definitely would love to explore the company that you know, Richard, and that way we can
Yeah.
involve them as well in our
Yeah.
project.
I think it's a really cool idea, and I think the fact that a company like Shangri-La is willing to take up
Yeah,
an offer on something like that is quite good, because I mean, you imagine if you cascade that out through 80 properties, it can be quite a significant saving. So yeah, and I think that from what I've seen, the actual fabrics themselves are very high quality. I mean, this guy from Shangri-La said, "Wow, I can't believe that it is such high
mm,
quality." The staff love it, and they
yeah.
also have a kind of feel good factor because they feel that they're contributing in some way. Yeah, that's good. So I was thinking about. I'm aware of the time. I know you've got another meeting, but how do I mean, you're somebody who obviously I can see is very passionate about this, right? And it's something that you really believe in. How do you cultivate that culture amongst all the staff? I know, in the UAE, there's a very diverse, ethnicity of different workers from the Indian subcontinent, from
Yeah.
the Philippines, and that type of thing. How do you kind of get your message across to all your staff? And is there anything that you're doing that is a program that you think's been really successful that you can share
Yes.
with other
So what
people?
I would say, I know that everyone say we do trainings, but in the beginning we started by giving training to our colleagues on energy, what's sustainability, and we thought that okay, it's not working. You know what? It's too technical for them to understand it. Okay, so what we started is to change it. For example, we changed the amenities in the room. When we explain why you have like a dispenser instead of single-use plastic,
Yeah.
they understood the idea much better when you tell them you need to reduce plastic, give me ideas. You know what I mean? So for every department, we have it one general training. For every new joiner who joined Rotana, he will attend a training on sustainability, health and safety, where we tell them what we have in Rotana, what we have in place, what are the practices that they will be enrolled, and then in each department they have a specific training related to this department, like housekeeping. Why do you need to encourage the guests to reuse the bed sheets and the linen towels? Okay,
Yeah. Go.
we made it more specific to them. Plus, all the colleagues, we created champions in the hotels or committees from the colleagues in the hotels, not departments head. I'm talking of the colleagues from different level, where they come up with idea, best practices. They get involved in our CSR activities, in our pilot. So this is make them more involved, and they will understand it more. You know,
Okay.
so instead of giving them something and just implement, and they don't understand anything out of it.
So which division or department do you find are most kind of on board with this? Is it like the chef, or is it like the engineering or housekeeping? I mean, who do you think are most enthusiastic about these things?
Look, or I would say, or like we have engineering that are too much involved in this. Kitchen definitely with the food waste, and even they always make a new item from recyclable material like plastic or something. Even housekeeping, like I wouldn't say, because these are the operational department. They are definitely more involved than someone, for example, I would say in finance or in, because it's more related to their operation that are more involved than any other department, I would say.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you reach that scale, that size of 80 properties, I mean, there's a lot of economies of scale, right? And I mean, there's opportunities there where, I mean, you could literally have huge commissary kitchen producing all the bakery items and distribute them out to sort of not just save costs, but environmentally it would be quite so because I mean I know most of the hotels they do everything within the property itself. Everybody has the sort of a blueprint of the other property, whatever it was. So, is there anything that you're doing across the company that is really what you would say is kind of groundbreaking in that area, or is there something in the pipeline that you're thinking of doing that could, be a bit of a game changer that you could promote?
So one of the things that I would say first, like there are one project that it's in all our property. If you go through front office team, there is no more paper in our front office. From cashless payment, from the check-in, check-out,
Oh,
from the
okay.
guest experience. Yeah. So and we don't have it. So this is across all our hotels. Okay.
Excellent. That's great. Yeah.
The other thing that, for example, now we are introducing across all our hotels is the digitalization of all the records. Okay, at
Okay.
least in our department. Okay,
Right.
this is across. We just started. We launched the system in January, and all the hotels now on board. Okay,
Great.
as well as with we have a third party agreement with Canon, where mainly all our printers they are on a passcode, no one can print, and as well we offset with them our CO2 emission related to our paper consumption.
Okay.
The third project that we are working on is the food waste.
Right.
The project took place now in UAE, where we have as well a collaboration with the third party that help us to measure our food waste. Okay, we started in UAE because this is where we have the highest number of the colleague of the hotels, and now hopefully in the next few months we will onboard all our hotels as well into tracking their food waste and set proper action plan to reduce it.
That's excellent. Yeah, it's great to hear that you're collaborating with industry and creative companies. I mean, I think that just going back to what we were talking about with this Cresswell group, I think that they might be interested in maybe doing a kind of collab with you, where they could say give one of your hotels all the chefs, let's say a uniform, and then maybe test it out for 2 or 3 months, see what the staff think of it, how does it wear, and kind of create a case study around it, which maybe then you could, if you're happy with it, you could roll it out. I think that could be quite interesting because I know that they're very, some companies are quite kind of inward thinking and others are more outward thinking. And I think that from the vibes I'm picking up from you is that I think you guys are quite creative and in how you're trying to initiate new ideas, and roll them out through the company. And I know with Phil Barnes, he's very open-minded like that, and he very much encourages people to come up with ideas and ferment
And this is what
ideas.
I wanted to say. So now, what with Phil on board, it's like we don't want only those initiatives to come from corporate. We want the
Yeah.
hotels to come up with their own project based on their need. Like recently, the last week, one of our hotels in Dubai, they got the certification for autism. So the hotel is now
Wow.
equipped, which is perfect.
Yeah.
So
That's
there are some hotels, for example, we have our hotel in Amman, Centro Mada is on 100% renewable energy. Okay. So
amazing. Yeah.
we don't want to limit our hotels to say, okay, once it's come from a corporate, we will work on it. No.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
want, yes, to work on projects from corporate office, but during that time, if any hotel wants to come up with their own initiatives, we let them. Okay, we
Yeah. That's
let them do it,
fantastic.
and then we take it from them, and then maybe enroll it on the rest of the hotels.
That's really good. Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, actually, I don't know if there exists in the world a zero carbon hotel, but I can imagine it probably would be somewhere in the Middle East if there was to be some, because they're always coming up with these very cool ideas of being the first for something. But can you imagine if there was a zero? I mean, you can't take the guest out of the picture. Obviously, the guest has to get there, have to get on an airplane and all those things, right? But if the actual facilities of the hotel could be as close as possible to zero carbon would be very cool.
Look, Richard, this is next. We are all working on how to really develop our hotels in a more sustainable way, starting from the construction, from the materials, from the initial stage.
Yeah.
So, because once it's in the operation, definitely it will be hard. We as a Rotana, we manage the hotels, okay? So sometimes we take over existing hotels. So we try to implement things as much as we can. But it's always better to start from the construction and then
Yes.
take it up. So,
Yeah.
and this is what we are working on with our project team to start to use as much as local resources, as much of a more eco-friendly way. And now we're setting the guidelines for all our hotels.
Yeah, from the ground
Pre-opening.
up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how many properties have you got at the moment that are under construction that or that you could potentially do that with? You know, I mean, how many hotels are you looking at in the next, say, 5 years, and how many are in the pipeline?
Look, I would say for the next 1 and 2 years, because we are more involved as a Rotana, I would say at the last phase when we start to give us the design and
Yeah.
for us to approve it. So for the next 2 years, I think we will have, I don't want to say a wrong number, but it's like
Yeah.
between 5 to 10 that they are now coming, and they will have meetings every week. We have a meeting to discuss where do we stand and where it can be done. So, but most
Excellent.
of the hotels from the initial stage, when we started to get agreements with the owner, we send them our requirements. Okay, this
Okay.
is what you need to have. You need to have LED, solar panels for the heat, for the hot water. So we have the requirements there, but now we're trying really to make it more strict, more developed.
Yeah.
Recently, one
Okay.
of the hotel in Abu Dhabi, like Al Hala Ajaan, get the LEED certificate, and hopefully one day all our hotel will get the same certification.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Carol, because I know, there's often a conflict in chains. I remember when I worked with Shangri-La, when I first joined, there were about 12 hotels. Now there's over 100. And I think there's this conflicting area of high standards versus standardization. I
Mm.
mean, if sometimes if you try to standardize something too much, then you kind of you throw a wet towel over the creativity. Everybody has to have the same hamburger, whichever Rotana you go in or whatever. So there's kind of a difference between high standards and standardization. I agree with you. So it's having that area in the middle where they can be creative and they can
Yes.
kind of do their own thing, and they're not worried about coming forward and saying, hang on, I've got an idea here. Why don't we try this? So I think that puts you in. I can see now why they've kind of chosen you to do this, because you're obviously very open-minded and you're very insightful. So I don't think that if you're going to a property, people are going to be kind of shivering in their boots, wondering
No,
about what you're going to.
no, definitely not. It's the opposite. Look, it's about all learning. Sustainability, it's something that we are all learning from. If I can start by saying the practices that we have on property level, I'm honestly surprised to see what our team are doing on property level. And when you give a freedom from people to take over a project, do a study based on their operation, their budget, this is how make it easy. It's easy to go to say, Rotana will go plastic free. But is it
Yes.
really possible? No, maybe it's not.
Right.
Let's be realistic. So
Right.
we
Right.
will
Right.
say, yes, please work on it and come up with your own ideas
Yeah.
and give us the solution. So
Yeah.
so
I
this
think
is
that's
what
a good point. That's a very good point, because you can actually, you've got this license to experiment without having to commit to roll it out. Whereas a brand like, Marriott or some of the other brands, once they do something in one property, it's kind of expected in all the others. But you guys can play around and experiment with different ideas, but it doesn't mean you have to take it on board everywhere. So I think that's really
And
a very
Richard, that's
interesting
why
point.
sometimes people they do greenwashing, because let's be
Yeah.
realistic. We have hotels in Iraq, in Lebanon, and all of this. Can we compare them to our properties in UAE? Definitely not. The budget that they
Yeah.
have, for example, in Lebanon with the situation, it's not like what they have in UAE. So we
Mm.
have to be as well logic. And as again, I will repeat, the project, they have to be sustainable. We don't want to have a project for 1, 2 years and then we go back, for example, to plastic,
Yeah.
or we go back to, so we want whatever we do, it has to be good for the operation, good for our owners, and good for our clients.
Yeah, 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 that's very true. So I I just feel that it's very exciting to listen to what you're doing, because it's really very innovative, and you're not just, some of the other invitees I've had on, and it's not their fault, but or they can really talk about what are the corporate standards, so they just follow along. They're a lot more like sheep, and they don't really have any say in anything. But I'm getting the feeling that you guys are very insightful. And how often, kind of final question really, but how often do you all meet as an organization, and talk about strategy and moving forward and things like that? Do you meet once every 3 months or once a year, or how,
So
how
we have
often?
every 2 weeks a meeting that we call Path to Performance, where we all talk about our strategy, where do we stand from our projects. So where we have mainly all the top management representative in this meeting. Then we have the ops meeting, where it's more related to the operation, what it can be
Okay.
done, including the area VP. Those are done on quarterly basis. And then every year we have one meeting with all the GMs of Rotana, where we meet, we share the best practices, and what's been done. And recently we introduced as well for our owner a newsletter, and sustainability is part of this newsletter, where our owners
Okay.
will really know what's happening in their property. And then this will create a best practice and more like, they will be more informed of what's happening when it comes to sustainability on our properties.
That's great. So, I mean, if you were going to pitch an idea, and then, let's say the supplier was able to sort of help you with like your Ecolab story there,
Yeah.
and they say, okay, we'll help you with the ROI, we can give you all the data, the financial stuff, and then you've got something very powerful that you can present. Which of those meetings would be the one that you would choose to do that in?
So the first one, I usually decide if it's someone to discuss it with the concerned person, like if it's related to engineering, housekeeping, to decide to first discuss it with them. And then definitely I go to the CEO, I discuss it with them to see really if it's something that we want to take it into consideration, we want to work on. And if they said, yes, let's explore this option. Honestly, most of the time they tell me, Carol, if you feel it's right, do it. We are here for you. Don't even ask.
Okay, okay,
So, and
good.
then once I do the pilot, I'm satisfied, I'm happy with this project. I launch it during the Path to Performance, and then we take it from there.
Well, that's
Once it's
amazing
in
because
the implementation, it's the ops
yeah.
meeting, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So that means they have a lot of trust in you, which is good. I mean, obviously you build that
Yeah.
up over the years, but um, just for I know some of the people who watch this are people who are thinking about getting into the
Mm.
industry, and I just wondered if you had um, any kind of thoughts that you could give to a young up and coming person, and what are some of the areas you think that they need to be able to focus on? For instance, with you, I would imagine that quite a lot of your job is involved in presenting ideas, right? And communicating with people, right? Because you can have, like you said, your diploma is in engineering and food science, but obviously you need to be able to articulate your ideas in a passionate way and convince very senior people. So how would you say, what would you think your strengths need to be if you were advising a young person now in the
Look,
industry?
it starts from you. If you are convinced of this project that you are working on, that it's beneficial, then you will really you will have put all your passion to explain it to the people and to put it on board. Look,
Okay.
people, they want to see the benefits of any project that you want to have in place. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it needs to have an ROI, but you have to show them really. So for me as a Carol, usually if there is a project that I'm working on, I don't see for the future term that it will work, I don't push for it and I don't
Okay.
even discuss it.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
try to prioritize that the project that I feel that these are must, these are beneficial, and we go forward. It's easy to do greenwashing, go ahead, implement things and do all of this. I would tell them take it slowly, do a full study on the project from all aspects, do a pilot, and if you are convinced, everyone will be convinced to do it.
So what say would be the three key things that you would be looking for that brand or that company? I mean, you're gonna look at what their sustainability practices are. For instance, where their factory is, how they. I mean, do you go that deep, or are you really just looking at the
Yes.
product? You
No,
do.
no, we do. So what we do assessment on our supply chain. So every supplier that we work with, we do audit on-site audit, by the way, on their health and safety system, sustainability, and food safety. Okay,
Okay.
and we put the criteria for them. Even recently, now with our material system called Jana, we introduced the audit scoring for the supplier. If he's more eco-friendly or more sustainable than any other supplier, it will come in green, so we put the country of origin of the product, from where it's
Yes.
coming as well, what's their policy. So this is currently, we do them all internally. We do assess our suppliers before we enroll them
Yeah.
into our
Yeah.
system.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. Well, that's been really interesting. Is there anything else you wanted to comment or say? I think we've covered a lot of areas, and I really appreciate, your time. I know you're really busy, but I would love to kind of circle back to you at some point, and see how you're getting on, because you're obviously a company that is very much on the move, and things are changing all the time. So it'll be really good to kind of like come back and in a few months and see how you're getting on, what initiatives you've experimented with, and I'd love to send you a bit more information about this
Yes, please do
Westwell.
that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Richard, allow me to thank you for this, because it's sustainability, it's a learning curve. We all need to learn from each other and to see.
yeah.
I would love that, to see everyone is open to say what's good, what's not, the challenges. It's not a happy life. It's not. So every
Sure,
project, everything has their challenges. So thank you for giving a space for people where they can really share what they are doing, the
sure.
challenges, and everything. This is honestly great. Thank you again.
No, you're well welcome. And as I'm a former GM, like 40 years I've worked in lots of places, and I just always felt that if there was some way you can give back, right? And then there's areas, and because I'm quite well connected, I'm able to sort of draw on the resources. But I really appreciate that Phil Barnes has, introduced me to you. And it's so refreshing to see somebody. I mean, one of the people I was talking to a few months back was the head of sustainability for Shake Shack,
Yeah.
based in New York, and she actually had somewhat of a similar background to you, also a younger female, and very interesting to see what they're doing. But she was somewhat limited because they're selling a franchise, so with a franchise arrangement, you've got to understand that the owner has to pick up a lot of the costs. So they're looking at just focusing on one thing at a time. So one whole year they could just be looking at, say, milk,
No.
because they use it in their milkshakes, or they don't sell coffee, but the flour, where do they get the flour from? And one item like that can have a huge impact. So it's interesting, so like when we were talking about uniforms, one small idea like that, if it's rolled out, actually can have a big impact. So anyway, it's lovely to chat with you, and I really appreciate it.
Thank
And
you, Richard, again.
let's keep in touch. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Okay, I'll
Thank
end it
you.
now. Thank you. Bye
Okay,
bye.
thank you. Bye-bye.